Caesar, ha, who calls? Bid every noise be still, peace yet again. Who is it in the press that calls on me? I hear a tongue shriller than all the music cry, Caesar! Speak, Caesar is turned to hear. Beware the Ides of March. What man is that? A soothsayer bids you beware the Ides of March. Set him before me, let me see his face. Fellow, come from the throng, look upon Caesar. What sayest thou to me now? Speak once again. Beware the Ides of March. He is a dreamer. Let us leave him. The Ides of March are here. Aye, Caesar, but not gone. I hope you can all forgive my little choppy rendition of my favorite Shakespeare play, one of the more memorable lines about the Ides of March. But as this particular cast is going to display, I am going to be discussing the Ides of March, as the Ides of March are upon us once again. Because of Shakespeare, a lot of people today probably attribute a lot of negative things as it relates to the Ides of March, but to be honest, Ides was simply a time of the month that was kind of the middle of the month, and it fell on March 15th. But there were also Ides of every other month besides March. Ides was also the 15th day of May, July, or October. Those are all months that had 31 days in it. Then the Ides was the 13th of every other month besides that. And a lot of it has to do with the phases of the moon and when the full moon came about. And so it sort of bounced back and forth around depending on when that particular moon phase came about. They ended up settling on the 15th and the 13th. Along with Ides, there are two other things that fall into the calendar. I don't know if you have ever heard of the calends. So calends, when you see calends of January, that meant January 1st. It was always the first of the month. And so if you ever see a historical account saying that it's taking place on the calends of October, that's October 1st. And then there was also a day called Nones. Nones was either on the 7th or the 5th of the month, depending on the number of days in the month as well, just like Ides is. But the Ides tend to get a lot more play because there were more holiday type celebrations that took place on that particular day in the month. Before the days of Caesar, what became known as the Ides of March was actually the beginning of the year. The pre-Christian populace saw it as a day of celebration, as I said before, a spring and a rising out of the darkness of the winter. Strangely enough, it was just 2 years before the time of Caesar's murder that Caesar did change the then Roman calendar to what we call the Julian calendar. Basically, the Julian calendar, of course, is what we use today with some slight tweaks that were done by Pope Gregory the 13th, I believe, who saw some flaws in the calendar as it relates to phases of the sun and the moon. Though there are still a few countries where you can find those people who still do use the older calendar. The day that we call 12th night, that is January 5th. Some places where that is actually Christmas, which is actually, 12 days before. That's why it's called 12th night, which interestingly, there is another Shakespeare play named after that. But returning to the Ides of March, one can always contemplate and say, well, here is another excuse to go and celebrate and party that happens before St. Patrick's Day, 2 days later. But to the Romans, the Ides of March was a great time for gathering and parades and celebrations that commemorate life and the coming of spring and the growing of crops to feed the masses of Rome and other places as well that celebrated the same day, though probably by a different name. I hope you all enjoyed my little discussion here of the Ides of March, and I hope to see you all on my next podcast. Have a wonderful day.